But for now, we got to get back to the story of what is going on in Washington and get some perspective on that. We bring in Lee Carter, president and partner at Maslansky and Partners. Lee, it's always good to get your perspective on these sort of political and messaging issues, right? So there seems to be this debate now over how best to handle the president. And what's intriguing is that the debate is happening not just on the Democratic side, but also on the Republican side, with reportedly a lot of talk about how to sort of perhaps erase him is too strong a word, but to sort of dampen his legacy given the events of last week. What do you think is the right path for them to take?
Listen, I think that there has to be a distancing from the president. There's no question about it right now that his legacy is going to be defined by this moment. There is no excuse for a lack of condemnation of the acts of last week. There is no excuse for the behaviors of the last week. And so this is his defining moment. I think that the Republicans really want to make sure that he is not the candidate of 2024. I think there are some Republicans who want him to be the candidate of 2024. And so this is the moment where the Republicans need to decide what their future is going to be. I think it's for that reason that you see a number of Republicans actually saying that they want the president to be impeached. And because that would not allow him to run in 2024, and it would ostensibly put him on the sideline. That does mean, though, that the Republican Party can't just rise from where they are today. They need to redefine themselves. There's a real reckoning that needs to happen in the Republican Party. It needed to happen before the acts of last week. It was clear after the Democrats won Georgia that the Republicans lost. They didn't just win the presidency. They lost the House. They lost the Senate. They lost all three. And before that moment, they had to decide who they were going to be. This is forcing them even more. And so this is the moment that they have to decide exactly, what is the party? What is the future of the party? Is it going to be the party of Trump, or is it going to go back to its roots, or is it going to be something new? But it's a moment of reckoning, no doubt about it.
Lee, along those lines, I've talked to some people who have suggested, the future of the Republican Party is like someone like Joe Biden. Really, if you kind of look at his policies, they're not that progressive if you think about what a lot of members of the Democratic caucus want. And I'm curious about that idea, where we've heard a lot of complaints from voters, certainly from politicians, about the two-party system isn't working. There may have been a view that it would fracture kind of on the left into two factions, but I do wonder if maybe that is more uniting for both current, Democrats and Republicans. In my view, I don't know how you would feel about that.
Listen, I think that there is a huge opportunity for President-elect Biden right now. He is absolutely proving to be a moderate. The people that he's appointing, the people he's surrounding himself with, are moderates. And I would say that upwards of 50% of Republicans right now feel homeless. They say, this is not my party. I don't know where to go. And if Joe Biden truly is going to be the president-elect of unity, which he promises to be, there's an opportunity for him to reach out. There's an opportunity for healing. There's an opportunity for coming together. There's an opportunity, I think, even to peel some of these Republicans over to the left. So I think it's a really interesting time, and I think that you're right. But in this moment, I haven't seen a huge amount of appetite for unity. I haven't seen a huge amount of, there's a huge appetite for condemnation of the president. There's a huge appetite for punishment right now, but there's not a real sense of, if you voted for Trump and you feel like it's a mistake, you can come here. There's a place for you. And I want to talk to you about that. That doesn't seem to be the tone. That doesn't mean that's not what we're going to see. And a week from today, we're going to have the inauguration, and he's going to set the tone for what it's going to be. And I think there is an opportunity for him to reach out and actually pull off some moderate Republicans. There's no question about it. But it's really going to be in the tone. It's really going to be in his approach. And even though that's what he's promised us, starting with his sort of acceptance, his victory speech, we haven't yet really seen the actions that are going to pull that through.
Well, Lee, how much can stimulus do into that end, right? Because everybody likes checks, unless you're an old school, fiscally conservative Republican, but there don't seem to be too many vocally of those anymore. And even if you're the one getting the check in your mailbox or in direct to your bank account, that tends to dampen your fiscal conservatism, right? So I wonder if that is going to sort of help matters on the unification front.
I think it could, and there's no question about, even if you are a traditional conservative, when you think about spending for government, this is one of those moments that you spend. You say there's a role for government in a public health crisis or in a national security crisis. That's what it's for. It's to keep us safe. It's to keep us afloat in times that we can't otherwise do it. So I think that there are many conservatives who are fiscal conservatives who say, you know what, this is the right thing to do in this moment. We're gonna have to figure out how to pay for it, but we have to do it. And so I think there is opportunity. The problem that exists today is that we're still in this huge blame game, right? People are saying it was the Democrats' fault that this didn't get done sooner. Nancy Pelosi should never have gone home over Labor Day. They held back on the stimulus just to hold back on Trump winning. I think that even though, in this moment, the Democrats are claiming victory for the $2,000 stimulus, many people are saying, you know what, this should have gotten done months ago. And so I think there's still some healing to be done. I think there's still some acknowledgement to be done of how ugly all of this was. Yes, President Trump was absolutely ugly. Let's not talk about, we can talk for days about how ugly his rhetoric was, but both sides have been ugly. When you look at surveys, right, 79% of Democrats believe that Republicans are racist, xenophobic, and misogynist. This has been a very, very ugly time. So it's not just going to be healing by stimulus. It's not just going to be healing by saying we're unity. It's actually going to be healing by saying, you know what, enough is enough. We've both participated in rhetoric that was not unifying, and it's time for us to come together because we are one America, and let's move forward together. And here's how. I think it's going to have to be a new day, but I think it's going to take some acknowledgement of how ugly the last 4 years have been on both sides.
Lee Carter of Maslansky and Partners. Thank you so much for being here, Lee.
Anytime.
And just to mention a couple of news items on that last front in terms of sort of calling out rhetoric or calling off ties with the president. Just wanted to mention this morning, we got the headline that New York City is going to be severing business ties with the Trump organization, including the Woolman Rink in New York City, popular tourist destination. And Cushman & Wakefield, the real estate brokerage, just announced it is going to be cutting ties with the president's business interests as well.